What's going on, YouTube? We're back with another video today. This is obviously a different video than from what I normally do. I saw this video pop up on BladeHQ's channel the other day, and it's all about sharpening and using different types of sharpeners. For those of you that watch BladeHQ's videos, they put out some decent content, mainly about collecting and knives and stuff. They're obviously a store first, and they're gonna do everything they can do to sell knives. So I was kind of curious to kind of see what their opinions are on sharpening, and what kind of tips they're gonna give you guys. Obviously didn't have high hopes, so in today's video we're gonna be going over everything that's wrong with this video. Hope you guys enjoy.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Knife Banner. Dallas, how you doing?
Before we even start here, just looking at the table that they have laid out in front of them, this looks like a gigantic advertisement for Work Sharp. I see 1, 2, 3, at least 4 different sharpeners from Work Sharp, and I've watched this video already before, just to kind of get an idea of what they're talking about and stuff. So at least 4 Work Sharp sharpeners there on the table, and looks like a sharp maker as well.
I want to clarify something before we get going too much. David has self-taught, YouTube, things like that, and he's also researched the crap out of it. There are different ways of doing things. This is just the way he does it, and he puts edges. He has taught me how to put edges on all.
Sharpening isn't really that difficult. Like, it's not, I mean, it's complex, but it's also simple, if that makes any sense. Everyone has their own processes, but for the most part, sharpening is the same regardless of what system you use. Same foundation, same basics, all the same stuff.
And we're only going to do 2 different blade shapes. We kind of felt, I think David and Kurt and I kind of felt that the Tonto was a must.
Agreed. I mean, that's a difficult blade shape for a lot of people.
David can...
If I need to throw a quick edge on something, I actually go to something like the Spyderco Sharp Maker. Like, if it needs to be quick, I'm not like looking to get anything like having to set it up or get it like a perfect angle, and this is mostly for my pocket knives. And you've got the angle that you're set up for.
Right.
Now, that's quick and easy, but the only thing about these ones is then you're kind of funneled into a few angles.
Yeah.
And so that's why I use it like on my work knives. Like, you can use it on.
What they forgot to mention here is the sharp maker is basically just set up for 15 and 20 degrees. And he's going to say something similar to that here in a second, but they didn't tell you what angles you can and can't sharpen with that.
Nicer knives. Like,
Yeah.
Spyderco knows what they're doing. These are fantastic stones. In fact, we were talking about that a minute ago.
Yep.
The reason I like them so much is Spyderco's stone quality is excellent. I mean, excellent. Like, it is fantastic. They really do make great stones.
I've had a couple of my knives, whether it be 20 CV, M4, S35, S30, that the Sharp Maker actually does better than just about anything else. The only thing this does different is I can dial it in very precision, just like the name. But I can get it very close on the angle that I'm shooting for. But I found that some of them, when it comes, it's easier to do it on the Sharp Maker, and it'll take the edge. I can't explain it. I don't know why.
I think it's the type of, they use a type of synthetic emerald in them, and it's supposedly like the hardest sharpener you can get.
Let's just stop it there. A lot of bad things being said right there. Number one, not synthetic emerald, not even close. That is aluminum oxide, one of the softer abrasives that you can get in sharpening stones. Probably the cheapest, if I had to guess. So not synthetic emeralds. Those are not the hardest materials available to sharpen on. That would probably be diamond or CBN. How he was just saying, the guy on the left, I don't really watch a lot of the BladeHQ stuff, and I know Kurt on the right. I don't know this guy on the left. First video I've watched with him in there. But the whole reason, I'm just speculating here, the whole reason he's probably getting better edges off of the Sharp Maker is because you really don't form a burr with the Sharp Maker. You're just going from rod to rod. And on the Precision Adjust or other sharpeners like that, you're forming a burr, and what I'm betting is he's struggling to remove any sort of a burr, and they don't really mention that at all throughout the video here, is burr formation, burr reduction, and then removing it to give yourself the sharp edge, to form a crisp apex. They don't really talk about that at all. It's basically all just focused on the sharpeners and what they do, but not, the learning process that it takes. He's also saying that, the sharp maker works best on his, for lack of a better term, super steels. And again, speculating here, but I'd be willing to bet that he's, one, not forming a burr consistently across the entire bevel, or two, just not removing it completely. The sharp maker is very easy just to form a micro bevel on your knife at the 20-degree setting. Edge comes up nice, but with it being ceramic, like we've talked about here on the channel before, is that you're going to lose a little bit of performance out of those higher end steels that require diamond or CBN to get the most performance out of them. You're going to lose a little bit of performance with the sharp maker just because of the aluminum oxide abrasives.
Super hard, and so that has a different effect on those steels, like 20 CV, M390,
Gotcha.
S90, or something that's really difficult.
Really hard.
Yeah.
Those steels aren't necessarily that hard, anywhere from 58 to 64 HRC at the absolute highest. And I mean, those steels are not that hard. They just have a lot of carbides in them that make them very hard to sharpen or grind away material.
My personal favorite way is actually to take a Sharpie, just a regular Sharpie, and you're just gonna mark just the edge of your knife. So you're filling in the entire edge.
He says he's filling in the entire edge, but only marks off a 1/8 inch section of the edge. And if you guys are using the Sharpie method, you should be coloring the entire bevel from heel all the way to tip, just because, especially on a factory edge, that angle varies sometimes by a lot. I mean, it can vary, 5-10 degrees from heel to tip. You want to mark up that entire bevel just to kind of see what spots need more work, and if you're using a guided system or even the sharp maker like this, just to kind of see, what spots are going to take a little bit of extra effort.
You don't want to get too much on there because it will stain some knives.
Okay.
I've used Sharpie on hundreds of knives at this point. I've never had Sharpie stain a knife.
Of it where you're like this and you do the, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to ruin the 940, but you have your angle and you're like, wow.
Yep.
And you're pushing and you
Says
go
he's
off
not
the
gonna
edge
do
and
it, but
rounds
goes ahead and
over
does it
around your
anyway.
tip or
That's
whatever.
me.
I had an old Kabar, just a regular.
It's K-bar. It's K-bar. It's not Kabar.
This one in particular is at too high an angle for this
Okay.
particular setup. Now,
Again, they didn't, explain that the sharp maker is set up for 15 and 20 degrees. So if you have a knife that is over that 20 degrees, it's not going to work the best without spending a lot of time to remove material to get it down to that 20-degree setting. What they're saying, without actually explaining it, is that the angle on that Kershaw that he's got in his hand there is over 20 degrees, so it's not actually going to be hitting the apex. So they pulled out the sharp maker to sharpen a knife on it, and then never actually even sharpen a knife on it.
I could mess with it and see if I can get it. Also, you can
have
reshape your
something
blade
else.
on there.
You can sharpen knives that are higher than those angles on there, but you have to tilt the knife to the side. So instead of going straight up and down, you have to tilt it to the side to increase that angle a little bit. It makes it a little bit more difficult to do that consistently, but it is possible.
So, if that's the case, and I've marked it, which I did on yours when I was sharpening
This
it.
one's already pre-set up.
So on this one, I'm just gonna mark it again, even though I already have the angle. I want to put a nice white
Again,
mark on
not
there. You
marking
guys
the
can
entire
see
bevel
that.
at all, just a small portion of
And
it.
you can get a knife really sharp with a rough stone. I mean, even down to, I've used an 80 grit stone that I got a
Oh,
knife
yeah.
real sharp. But to get that, we're gonna start with that and then work our way down so we get that like razor blade sharp knife.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, which I might be completely, absolutely 100% wrong.
Wrong again.
If you do it with the super rough grit, it won't hold an edge longer. But, right? Does its
Theoretically,
edge go away quicker?
it can, because what you're doing is when you're looking at that edge microscopically, is you're seeing that it kind of has
Some
some ridges
ridges.
on it.
And then the
Okay.
fine stone smooths it out where it'll hold the edge longer.
Plus, you're also, as you're doing that stone, especially since we're going sideways up and down.
So this is just complete lies. This is all extremely steel dependent. Certain steels last a little bit longer with finer edges. Some of them last a little bit longer with rougher edges. Personally, out of the steels that I've tested, almost all prefer a somewhat coarser edge. You don't want something that's, 100 grit, but you also don't want something that's 10,000 grit. You want something that's kind of in between. But what I've settled on is something anywhere from 400 to 1,000 is typically best. But you really don't need to go that fine. And going finer normally isn't going to give you any better edge retention than a somewhat coarse edge. And honestly, cutting performance-wise, as far as quality of your cut, being able to start your cut easier, the coarser edges are typically better.
Another thing that you can't stress enough is light touch. You kind of get into it and then you see you're not making much progress. So I have a tendency to push harder and harder and harder. Yeah, and then
that's actually a pretty good point. Pressure plays a pretty big part in sharpening. It's very important to monitor your pressure and not start pushing down too much, no matter what system you're using, or even if you're freehanding. Pressure really determines your final apex.
Pretty soon you're ruining your edge.
The sins of sharpening.
Pretty soon.
You're not going to ruin it with too much pressure, but it's going to be extremely hard to deburr or even form a crisp apex with too much pressure.
You're like, come on, get this.
Even the easiest methods require patience.
Yes.
And this is a lot less patience than say like a whetstone, which
disagree completely. Guided systems typically take longer. Your finished product is more uniform normally for most people, and the bevels are obviously flatter because there's no convexity like you get on a whetstone or diamond plate by freehanding. But freehanding, I could normally do in 5 minutes or less. On a system, you have setup time, you have just the time to match your angle again if you've already sharpened it in the past, or even reprofile if it's a knife that you haven't sharpened in the past and you have to get rid of that factory grind. Guided systems just normally take a decent bit longer than what freehand will.
But this is a much less patience requiring device.
Right.
Than,
It's your quick go-to.
Unless he's talking about patience of learning how to use it to achieve good edges. In that case, 100% agree. Guided systems are normally a decent bit easier. You kind of remove a lot of the human error out of it and inconsistency.
But this one's already pretty close to sharp, so I'm going to start switching to one pass.
Okay.
And the reason is you're trying to get that edge as even as possible. And if you're doing too much to one side, it's going to start rocking.
Also guilty.
Yes.
Yep.
Same. And then
It almost sounds like they're talking about forming a burr there, and that's exactly what you want to do, unless they've already done that and they're minimizing it. But again, they're not explaining it very much. They're just basically showing you the products and not really the process to get the edge that you're looking for. And I can't blame them. I mean, they are a website that sells knives, sharpeners, other accessories. So their goal here out of making this video is to get you to buy these products and not necessarily teach you about sharpening. But if you're gonna make, I mean, the blade or the title's literally knife tips for the perfect grind. It's not look at all the sharpeners that we have. So honestly, this is more of a sales pitch in my opinion than it is useful tips on how to use what they're showing you.
you're going to notice you're going to sharpen your blade a lot if you're pressing too hard, and you're going to notice it never gets really sharp. And it's because you keep pushing that burr from one side to the other too much. You're pushing too hard. And so just be light. It's a delicate process. So this one, we've done quite a bit, and it's actually really...
You can form a big burr if you really want to. It's just being able to reduce it. And he's not explaining that. He's just basically saying burr is bad. Don't do that. You want a burr. You just don't want to, when you're trying to reduce it, you don't want to keep pushing it from side to side that much.
I can go anything from a pretty fine angle, in fact, too fine an angle that I never had to put it on a knife.
Too fine an angle as in 15 degrees, which is really a good starting point for any modern steel. Anything more than that, you really don't need unless you're using your knives wrong. 15 degrees is plenty obtuse enough to take a decent amount of damage and still boost your cutting performance.
To really thick and wedge like I swear I could put a hatchet head in there and sharpen it.
Probably not. The jaws don't open that wide.
With the upgrade kit that comes with these and this little bag that fits this in it. Now I sound like a work sharp rep. I don't
Y'all do sound like work sharp reps. This isn't really criticizing them at all, but this is on the upgrade kit for the work sharp. When the system initially came out, it was 320, 600 in the ceramic, which is plenty. I mean, that's a great starter set to, you know, achieve edges that you want to get. People were asking for, you know, finer grits, or just more stones in general, and Worksharp came out with the upgrade kit and everyone was really excited. But now it's 220, 320, 400, 600, 800 if I remember right, the ceramic still, and then a strop. So all they did was add one more finer grit to what you already had, and then added a bunch of stones that aren't even necessary in between the grits that they already had. You really don't need anything between that 320 and 600. That 400 is completely unnecessary. The 220 is not a bad idea, you know, just to remove more material if need be. But I mean, that didn't make any sense to me that they added a whole bunch of stones in between what they already had, instead of, you know, going on to, you know, maybe the 800, or even you could have skipped 800 or just go to 1,000 or 1,200 and been okay.
Go check the website. I'm not exactly sure exactly what comes in at. I think the whole kit's about $120.
Yep.
That's another huge downside to this system. I mean, it's completely plastic. You get a bunch of grits that are useless. The only thing that you really get with that upgrade kit is the little case that it comes in, and even then, that's like a $3 case. For $120, you can get like a KME, like basic 3 diamond stone set for about the same price, and have something that's much better built, made here. I think it's made here in the States. Pretty sure they're made here in the States. Great warranty, just a better product overall, instead of going with something like this for that same amount of money.
I'm gonna do one pass.
It's a wet stone. You probably want to put a little bit of water on there. And just by the looks of the stone, he's probably been doing this dry for however long he's had it. You can see all of the steel buildup on there. If you were using a little bit of water, that wouldn't be quite as thick on there. Also, that stone definitely needs to be dressed, and probably should have dressed it before they started this video. It's a very dirty stone, probably not going to be cutting as good as it should be. Not sure if he's even aware of that, but that made me cringe.
Second one, and just run it straight
Sound
across.
just hurts my heart.
Now, I practiced a lot for years now, and I still don't quite have it down. But there's little things you can
Probably
do.
start with some water on the
marker
stone.
method. But I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna picture that point going.
There's that little spot that he sharpied. Not the whole bevel, just that tiny little spot.
And not a lot of pressure, I can see that.
It's because what happens is when you put pressure, you're now dictating where the blade goes.
Yeah.
And that's not what you want. What you want is the blade to tell you where it wants to go. You do want to feel that edge and let it take you so that it's following the original factory edge.
Guys, this is like wizardry.
Like I said, pressure plays a big part in sharpening. Sometimes you do need pressure, sometimes you don't need a whole lot of pressure. You can really dictate on where material is being removed from a knife just by proper pressure and you know, finger placement. Saying that pressure is 100% a bad thing is, I think, in my opinion, wrong.
That's what bench stoning is. It's not going to be the way that you get the most perfect edge. There are guys out there who can do it, but they've been doing it their whole lives.
I saw some YouTube videos where I'm like, okay, I don't have that patience.
No, there's
David, have the patience for me.
A lot of people talk about freehand sharpening, or even sharpening in general, like it's impossible, or only a few people know how to do it, or you know, you have to devote your entire life to be able to do it. It's honestly not that difficult. It's just a little bit of practice and understanding some of the basic concepts. It's not something that, I mean, literally everybody can achieve a level of sharpening that is suitable for them. It's not something that's impossible to achieve.
Yeah.
Especially on a 20 CV blade. Do you know how long it's going to take me to sharpen this blade on this?
Because it's not the correct abrasive for what you're trying to sharpen.
And they are, because they give you that way of doing it that doesn't allow for your shakiness or your bad angle to screw up your knife. So if you have a nice knife,
If you know, mess up the angle, you're not ruining your knife or screwing up your knife. It just takes a little bit of work to fix it. That's another thing that I hear all the time with, you know, people just getting into sharpening, is that they don't want to ruin their knife. So you're not going to ruin your knife. You may add some scratches to it, that you didn't want to be there, but you're not going to ruin it. You know how long it would take to sit there and sharpen and completely ruin a knife? I mean, you'd be there for weeks, months. So that's a thing that I hear all the time, that is just completely wrong, and you really can't mess it up. You can learn from your mistakes, but you're not going to completely ruin a knife just by sharpening it incorrectly.
Stuff like that.
Before we close out, though, I just kind of want to mention some of the other brands that we carry of sharpeners.
Right.
You know, the Lansky's, KME.
Yep.
There's quite a few. Just go onto the website.
I can't believe that they even brought it up, honestly, after showing all the Work Sharp stuff. I don't know why they didn't have a Lansky on here. That would have been a great addition to what they already have and add some variety with the brands. KME, they literally said they have the KME, so why not bring it on here? Maybe because they felt like it would detract sales from the Work Sharp stuff, and I bet the margins on the Work Sharp stuff are better than what the KME stuff is. I just feel like they're trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator, people who don't know how to sharpen, aren't super into this kind of stuff. Although I guess if you're super into this kind of stuff, why would you be watching a BladeHQ video on sharpening anyway? But I feel like they should have brought out more options, anywhere from the Lansky or even the Precision Adjust, all the way up to like the Wicked Edge stuff. You could, just to show how much variety there is in what these sharpeners are and the difference in quality that you get by spending $50 on the Precision Adjust or $800 or $1,000 on something like a full-blown Pro Pack Wicked Edge. So they acknowledge that they have other sharpeners. It would have been cool to see other sharpeners on here other than Work Sharp plus just the Sharpmaker. All right, guys, so wrapping things up here, the video itself had some good points in it, also had a lot of bad stuff in it, kind of perpetuating a lot of, the bad things that you read online, with not using the correct abrasives and, sharpening's difficult, all that kind of stuff that you hear online all the time. It's really a lot more simple than what they made it seem on this video. To me, what this entire video seemed like was knife salesmen selling you products, not so much a sharpening guy showing you how to sharpen. It was more of a sales pitch for a lot of these products, which, like I said, I totally get it. They're a knife shop, they sell this kind of stuff, they want you to buy the product. That's the whole reason they make the videos. But the problem with that is you're gonna see this video has 22,000 views on it. And I mean, that's 22,000 people that have seen this video, and a good majority of them are going to, take a lot of info from this video and apply it to their sharpening and maybe not see the best results or wonder why things aren't working correctly. When honestly, there was a decent bit of bad information presented in this video. I just wish if they were going to put out a video on sharpening like this, that they would have done a little bit more research, had somebody that knew a little bit more than what this guy did on the video. Not saying he didn't know some stuff, because he totally did, and I'm sure he sharpens knives adequately, but it would have been much better to have somebody who was more of a expert or professional on the subject on the video, instead of just one of their guys around the shop. So I know this was kind of a different video for you guys. I'm not going to do this stuff very often. I just saw this video and knew I had to kind of make a video reacting to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this style, and maybe we'll do stuff like this in the future. I don't know. So as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.